Hey, Shalom YouTube, Shalom believers. This is Sister Kate, Shofar Mountain. I am in town right now, and this is the 5th time I've tried to shoot this video. I'm giving it one more shot. The poll videos that I have been doing are pretty much finished now. If you had questions about marriage or how to be a godly woman, then I have a video on Proverbs 31 that would be for the godly woman, and then my other videos like who married you would be a place where you could get my views on marriage. And basically it's all going to come from the word anyway, so you can just Google search marriage and Bible and you'll come up with the same verses that I use for my opinion on biblical marriage. Now, the video I wanted to do today is on the 6th commandment because someone asked me about that. Yeah, the sun is really bright. It's getting in my eyes, so I'm trying to find a comfortable way to do the video and not be totally in shadow too. This will probably have to do. Anyway, it's on the 6th commandment, which is thou shalt not kill, if you read it in the King James Version. But if you go to a Scriptures Bible, it will say do not murder, or thou shalt not commit murder. And this is an issue you probably want to think about if you're one of those prepper type, end of the worldy type people, or if you believe in the Second Amendment that you have a right to defend your person with a firearm, because if you believe that that commandment reads thou shalt not kill, then you're going to run into some kind of issue there, just like Audie Murphy did when he was considering, I don't remember, excuse me, if he were drafted or not, but he was definitely considering entering the military, but as I think he was a Quaker or something, he had qualms about thou shalt not kill, and so he had to do some personal praying and studying and finally decided he could enter the military. And then if you look at his history, he became one of the most decorated veterans of World War I, etc., etc. So we need to look at the Father's definition of kill and his instructions about these sort of issues. So if you go into the Old Testament, you will find in Exodus 20 where Moses is given the 10 Commandments and then he passes them on. And you will also find in the Old Testament places where the Father directly tells his people, I want you to go in and wipe that village out. And I want you to kill every living thing in that village. So how can he say, do not kill, and then say, you go kill somebody? Well, it's not, there's more to it. The do not kill is more correctly translated, do not commit murder, because the Father himself delineates in his word between accidental killings, like if the axe head swings off when you're cutting wood and it kills somebody else. He has a contingent plan for that. You are allowed to flee to what's called a sanctuary city, and if you get there before the kinsman redeemer gets you, and the kinsman redeemer would be someone of the family of the person that you accidentally killed, if he gets to you before you get to that sanctuary city, he can revenge his relative's murder. But if you get to the sanctuary city, then you get to live there until the high priest under which your offense happened either dies or is replaced. So the Father knows there's accidental killings and then there's purposeful murders. And he also has commandments against actions in Leviticus and so on that have death penalties for what you've done, like kidnapping and I think raping someone and just adultery and so on. But he also says when something like that happens, you cannot accuse someone of a crime that has a death penalty just yourself, because he knew It's your word against the other person's word. The Father knows this. He said you have to have at least 2 or 3 witnesses in the case of a capital crime, so that one person couldn't just get revenge on another person by saying these things. And if you were the number 1 person accusing someone else of a crime that is a death sentence, you had to throw the first stone at that person. So it became very, very personal under the Father's laws. So in that context, the Father is not against killing if he gives a death sentence. And also if he instructs someone to wipe a village out. So let's look at the village. He tells the Israelites, I'm telling you to go wipe out this village, not because of what you did, but because of what they did. Something about that village offended the Father. And because the Father is righteous, righteous means if we're in a righteous relationship with him, we're correctly in relationship with him. But righteous also means he gives punishment according to the crime. And so it's never, like the Greek gods were very capricious, and they could have a bad day and they would just wipe out a whole town or whatever in those legends. They were never, you reap what you sow. That's one thing that makes Yahweh different from other gods, is that he is very, what you reap, what you sow, then you therefore reap. So if you do bad, bad happens to you. If you do good, good happens to you. And so when he tells the Israelites to wipe out a whole village, it's because that village is reaping what they sowed. And they have offended him, and in his rule book, their offense is so bad that he wants them wiped out. So let's apply that to your modern person. Let's say you're a soldier. How do you then, right? Thou shalt not kill. Well, if it's like we are talking about, that the Father has conditions under which he is all right with a death penalty, then thou shalt not kill doesn't really fit it. It is thou shalt not commit murder, because a soldier is in a battle and people are going to die. The Father also sent Israelites into war all the time, and people died on both sides. So being a soldier doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot fire on the enemy. The Father understood that and expected that to happen in battles. And there are those Christians who interpret that to mean not kill, and so they do things like become ambulance drivers and stretcher bearers and things like that. So that kind of explains that in a modern context. If you're a soldier and you're fighting, that's a lawful action and something to be expected. Also, with thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit murder. You cannot kill someone and bring blood guilt on yourself. So that supports the 6th commandment being thou shalt not commit murder. Because there were definitely cases where the blood guilt would be on you if you killed someone. So that is also one of the contexts for that commandment. Now, if we come to police officers, their law and God's law are not necessarily the same, but in some ways they are very much the same, because it's against civil law to commit murder and it's against God's law to commit murder. So if you're an officer of the civil law, then you're going to follow what the civil laws say. And the civil laws allow a police officer to use deadly force in certain circumstances. So if you're in that situation and you have legally done your job, then you would not be, at least by the civil court, considered guilty of murder. But the Father knows, so in your heart of hearts, if you're a police officer, you also know whether you have legally used deadly force or not. And when I say you know in your heart of hearts, that ties in with the Father, because in Jeremiah 31:30 and 31:31, it talks about the new covenant being written on our hearts. So if thou shalt not commit murder is written on your heart by the Father, then it doesn't matter what job you're in, you still have his laws there, if you accept them. This only goes for people who accept God as God and are willing to follow his laws. And that's what identifies you as one of God's followers. So this is for those people only. If you have a different worldly opinion, then that's for you. All my teachings and all my things are for people who believe, and they are from my perspective. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a seminarian. I am a believer who's been studying the Word for a good 30 years, and these are my interpretations. All right, I hope this has helped you. Thanks for watching. Bless you. Shalom.